We are back with part 2 of this week's reading of the Messianic Jewish Family Bible, Tree of Life version, and we are doing the Song of Songs, or also known as the Song of Solomon, and then we are also doing the Book of Ruth this week. So the final chapter of the Song of Songs is chapter 8. Oh, that you were like a brother to me who nursed at my mother's breast. If I found you outside, I would kiss you, and no one would despise me. I would lead you and bring you into my mother's house, she who has taught me. I would give you spiced wine to drink from the nectar of my pomegranate. Oh, that his left hand were under my head, and his right hand embraced me. I charge you, daughters of Jerusalem, do not arouse or awaken a love till it so delights. Protecting love is the final section. Who is this coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her lover? Under the apple tree I roused you, there your mother travailed with you. There she who was in labor gave you birth. Set me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm. For love is as strong as death, jealousy as cruel as Sheol. Its flames are bolts of fire, the flame of Adonai. Many waters cannot quench love, nor rivers wash it away. If one gave all the wealth of his house for love, it would be utterly despised. We have a little sister still without breast. What shall we do for our sister on the day when she is spoken for? If she is a wall, we will build on her a turret of silver. If she is a door, we will fence her in with cedar plank. I'm a wall in my breast like towers. Thus I have become in his eyes as one bringing shalom. Solomon had a vineyard at Baal Hamon. He entrusted the vineyard to caretakers. Each was to bring for his fruit 1,000 pieces of silver. My very own vineyard is before me. 1,000 are for you, Solomon, and 200 for those who tend the fruit. You who abide in the garden, friends are listening for your voice. Let me hear it. Come quickly, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag on the mountains of spices. And that's the end of Song of Songs. This book was written by Solomon somewhere between 970 and 930 BC, and the central message of the book is the quest for authentic love. And again, it's also known as the Song of Solomon, also as Canticles, and it's a series of lyric poems on the theme of love between man and woman. According to Jerome, um, the Jews did not permit their young to read this book until they were about 30 years old. Despite all the doubts about this book, it is part of holy and divine scripture. Therefore, we can learn valuable lessons from this book. And the key word in the song is love. The song has been subjected to all kinds of interpretations, um, both Hebraic and both Christian alike. See the song as allegories of God's love for Israel and of also Yeshua's love for the church. But the song itself gives no direct warrant for this. It's actually very simply about a Shulamite woman and Solomon. The love presents a passionate desire between Solomon and this Shulamite woman. And the basis of all human love should be covenant love. Covenant love is also the basis of the relationship between God and man. So yes, covenant love is very important. The song applies properly to both marriage and to covenant history. The Shulamite personifies the wife in an ideal marriage and the covenant people and their history in the promised land under the blessings of royal Solomonic love. My beloved is mine and I am his. He feedeth among the lilies. That is stated in Solomon, in the second chapter of Solomon. And it also goes on to describe the union between Yeshua and his redeemed people, which is expressed to us in the form of a marriage union when you think about that. So if you do metaphorically go into that, absolutely. The song contains portraits of the Shulamite woman, along with a full array of her garden products. The reader should take these poetic parallels of marital love and of covenant blessings of the people in their land. The Shulamite woman lives and rewrites the history of God's covenant people. In the Shulamite, the corrupt family tree of Israel bears pleasant fruits. The book is portrait of marital love. The Shulamite woman holds her husband and will not let him go. Her husband praised her beauty, a royal wedding procession, and then the bride and grooms rejoicing in one another are portrayed in this book. And the song is a constant reminder to drifting marriages with its challenge to seek for openness, growth, and joyous relationship. And it also is excellent, as a premarital manual. Um, it can bring healing to the core of our being with its hope of covenant love as it reshapes marriages. The covenant love relationship expressed in the song also has application to the covenant love relationship enjoyed by the church.
And I want to mention here, we're talking about covenant. Let's look at the word covenant. A covenant is an agreement. There was a covenant between them. Um, an agreement. You're making an agreement between two parties, or more than two parties. It can be between a group of people. Now, when we're looking at the theological basis for the word covenant, it is an agreement which brings about a relationship of commitment between God and his people. And our faith is based on the biblical covenants made with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Also, there was covenants made with Moses and David. So covenants, there's agreements. And when we talk about marital covenants, it's an agreement between two parties to actually, it's a commitment to one another. So you're making a covenant to become joined together as one, as long as the couple lives. So that is the biblical marital covenant that is made.
So the structure of the book is initial love, faltering love, growing love, transforming love, and mature love. So the key to the Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs, is also found in Psalm 45. And Psalm 45 is a royal wedding song for the music director, according to Lilies of the Sons of Korah, a contemplative song, a love song. My heart is stirred with a good word. I speak my verses to the king. My tongue is the pen of a skillful writer. For you are the most handsome of the sons of men. Grace pours from your lips, therefore God has blessed you forever. Gird your sword on your thigh, O mighty one, in your splendor and your majesty. In your majesty ride victoriously. On behalf of truth, meekness, and justice, let your right hand display awesome things. Your arrows are sharp, peoples fall beneath you into the heart of the king's enemies. Your throne, O God, is forever and ever, and a scepter of justice is the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore God, your God, anointed you with the oil of gladness above your companions. All your robes have myrrh, aloes, cassia, from ivory palaces, stringed instruments make you glad. Kings' daughters are among your honored women. At your right hand stands the queen in gold of Ophir, from Ophir. Listen, O daughter, consider and incline your ear. Forget your people and your father's house, then the king will desire your beauty. Honor him, for he is your lord. A daughter of Tyre comes with a gift. The richest people will court your favor. All glorious is the king's daughter within the palace. Her gown is interwoven with gold. She will be led to the king in embroidered garments. Her virgins, her companions, follow her, coming into you. They are led in with joy and gladness. They enter into the palace of the king. Your sons will take your father's place. You will make them princes throughout the land. I will cause your name to be remembered in all generations. Therefore, the nations will praise you forever and ever. So this psalm is titled, you know, a song of loves, and it is a royal marriage hymn referring to King Solomon. While the primary reference is to King Solomon, the ultimate reference is to Yeshua HaMashiach. And we see in Hebrews
chapter 1, verses 7 to 8, and regarding the angels, he says, He makes his angels winds and his servants a flame of fire. But regarding the Son, he says, Your throne, O God, is forever and ever, and a scepter of uprightness is the scepter of your kingdom. So, yeah, there is definitely a parallel of Jesus, Yeshua, in this as well. So that is the end of Song of Songs, or in other Bibles known as Song of Solomon. And we're going to continue now into the book of Ruth, which gives another perspective of love. So this is kind of fitting that we should actually do both of these books together in kind of it's kind of a different way of looking at things. Ruth is such a wonderful character in as far as women in the Bible. Ruth is such a faithful, loyal person. So as we read the book of Ruth, you will see the person that she is and how um, she's a very strong woman in what she does. But she's a very faithful and true person in what she does, and exemplifies what women should be like, faithful and true. Um, so Ruth is a poetic story dealing with issues of love, loss, and legacy. It contains some memorable passages and timeless truths. Love between a husband and wife, a daughter-in-law and mother-in-law, and perhaps above all, the love of God for the Jewish people and those who would be grafted in to the commonwealth of Israel. Now, Ruth, I'm going to just mention here, Ruth was not a Jewish woman. She was a Moabite woman. So she was a Gentile. She was a Gentile that ended up marrying into the Jewish heritage, which is direct lineage to Yeshua, as we're going to see as we move forward with this. Loss permeates the story as well, in the form of death in the family and famine in the land. Finally, legacy is the net result, as the very Messianic line is preserved through the characters in this book. In a Jewish life, Ruth is typically read at the feast of Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, a Jewish holiday known in the church world as Pentecost. We do read the book of Ruth during that time. The theme of the harvest is intertwined with those of family relations and Israelite culture. The name Ruth is a contraction for RE apostrophe UT or RE apostrophe UTH, meaning companion or friend. This is the only place in the Hebrew Bible the name is found. And most Talmud scholars ascribe the authorship to Samuel, although some have suggested Nathan may be the writer of this book. The prevalent view is that Ruth was written between 1011 and 931 BC during the time of the Judges, where it served as a bright spot in an otherwise dark period. The book was written to the Israelites and serves the purpose of establishing David as God's chosen king. The book illustrates the sovereignty of God, the main characters moving through the story as actors working through a drama on God's stage. Ruth was led back to Bethlehem and married Boaz in the plan of God. Boaz was sovereignly chosen to overcome the stigma of Ruth's family history from the outcast tribe of Moab. His willingness to redeem Ruth brought him, in so doing, he became a type of kinsman redeemer. of all mankind. Now, Yeshua HaMashiach, in his compassion and obedience, um, Boaz helped to fulfill God's covenantal promise to David, and also that a king from his line would always rule in Israel. In fact, the ultimate fulfillment will be when the King of Kings sits on the throne of David. Now, when we talk about kinsman redeemer, Yeshua is our kinsman redeemer because he redeemed us. So, absolutely, he is. For Messianic believers, the book of Ruth serves as the seminal treatise on the potential within the international church to boldly stand in relationship to the people of Israel. Ruth's plea, do not plead with me to abandon you where you go, I will go, your people will be my people, and your God my God, stands as an eternal promise and invitation for Gentiles to knit their hearts with the hearts of Israel, the people and place. The meandering that leads the company from and back to Bethlehem fulfills essential biblical messianic prophecy about the birthplace of Messiah, which is Bethlehem. The role of the Goel brilliantly foreshadows the future Goel Gadol, great kinsman redeemer Jesus, Yeshua, God's mercy in knitting a Moabitess into the lineage of this revered King David, and his greater son Yeshua foreshadows the gospel of grace. In fact, Ruth yields a death blow to religiosity and prejudice and opens the door to grace beyond measure. Amazing grace indeed. And Goel is a close kinsman redeemer, and Gadol means great. I know I read some Hebrew words there. I just want to make sure everybody understands what the meaning of them are. So yes, Ruth was not part of B'nai Israel. She was a Moabitess who married into a Hebrew family. So we're going to read Ruth, and then we will recap on that. So we're going to read the book of Ruth. Elimelech's family in Moab. It came to pass in the days when judges were governing, there was a famine in the land. A man went from the town of Bethlehem in Judah to dwell in the region of Moab with his wife and his 2 sons. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi, and his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They came to the region of Moab and remained there. Then Naomi's husband Elimelech died, so she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women. One was named Orpah, and the second was named Ruth. And they dwelt there about 10 years. Then those two, Mahlon and Chilion, also died. So the woman was left without her children and her husband. Then she got up along with her daughters-in-law to return to the region of Moab, because in the region of Moab she had heard that Adonai had taken note of his people and given them food. So she left the place where she was along with her 2 daughters-in-law, and they started out on the road to return to the land of Judah. So Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, go, return each of you to your mother's house. May Adonai show you the same kindness that you have shown to the dead and to me. May Adonai grant that you find rest, each of you in the house of your own husband. Then she kissed them, and they wept loudly. No, they said to her, we will return with you to your people. Now Naomi said, go back, my daughters. Why should you go with me? Do I have more sons in my womb who could become your husbands? Go home, my daughters. I am too old to have a husband. Even if I were to say that there was hope for me, and I could get married tonight and then bore sons, would you wait for them to grow up? Would you therefore hold off getting married? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, for the hand of Adonai has gone out against me. Again they broke into loud weeping. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law good-bye, but Ruth clung to her. She said, "Look, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Return along with your sister-in-law." Ruth's covenant with Naomi. Ruth replied, "Do not plead with me to abandon you, to turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May Adonai deal with me, and worse, if anything but death comes between me and you." When she saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she no longer spoke to Ruth about it. So the two of them went on until they arrived in Bethlehem. And the name of Bethlehem, actually means the house of bread, just so you know that. As soon as they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole city was excited because of them. And the women asked, "Is this Naomi?" "Do not call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, since Shaddai has made my life bitter. I went away full, but Adonai has brought me back empty. Why should you call me Naomi, since Adonai has testified against me, and Shaddai has brought calamity on me?" So Naomi and her daughter-in-law Ruth, the Moabitess, returned from the region of Moab. They arrived in Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. And I'm going to pause it now, and we'll come back to a part 3.